TJ, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
TJ, what are you seeing on your screen?
I can see the two board members and Mr. Wiggins.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
What is it?
Good morning and welcome to the Mississippi Board of Nursing. This time I'd ask for Ms. Shirley Jackson to give us a word of prayer.
Good morning. Please bow your heads. Dear God, thank you for all the love you've given us and your blessings. Thank you so much for providing us with wisdom and the ability to be able to understand what we have before us and be able to make the proper judgment. Dear God, thank you for the people that are out in the audience. Thank you for the people that are on Zoom. Thank you for those that are here in the world. We know that we have struggles that we have to overcome. So if you will just guide us, hold us fast in your heart and in your arms. Those of you that are out there, I pray that all goes well with you and your families. I also pray that if you've had any difficulties, look to God to guide you. In Jesus' name I do pray, amen.
Amen.
We're ready to go on the record. Made up of 13 members, 7 RNs, 4 LPNs, 1 physician, 1 consumer. At this time, I'm gonna introduce ourselves. I'm Laura Moore, RN board member.
Sandra Culpepper, LPN board member.
Shirley Jackson, LPN board member.
Edward Wiggins, Special Assistant Attorney General. I'll be serving as the hearing officer.
TJ Adams, RN board member.
All right, good morning, everyone. Is the licensee present?
Mr. Odom? Yes.
All right, please state your name for the record.
My name is Lee Odom.
Are you represented by counsel, Mr. Odom?
No, sir.
Do you understand you have the right to be represented by counsel?
Yes.
Do you understand that you have the ability to question witnesses have witnesses present on your behalf?
Yes, sir.
Do you also understand that you have the ability to examine any witnesses that the state may present?
Yes, sir.
The order of the proceedings will go as follows. We will have opening statements. Licensee will be allowed to cross-examine any witnesses testifying against him. At the conclusion of both sides, closing statements will be allowed. The board will make findings of fact and conclusions of law and will render its decision in the matter, a copy of which will be sent to the applicant. At this time, I ask that all witnesses be sworn.
The state would have no witnesses, and I believe Mr. Odom then would be the only witness to be sworn in.
Mr. Odom, this is the court reporter. Would you raise your right hand to be sworn in, please, sir? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this cause to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, for the record, a quorum is present. I'll remind you that these hearings are open to the public. The board may deliberate and make its decision in executive session. At this time, we'll start with opening statements.
I would defer to Mr. Odom to proceed first, as this is a matter for restoration of his license.
Okay, I just want to thank the board for meeting with me today. At this time, do not have any opening statements to give.
Thank you, Mr. Odom. Counsel?
Yes. Mr. Odom surrendered his registered nursing license with the Mississippi Board of Nursing on or about January 30th, 2018. He did so in response to agreed violations of the Administrative Code 1.2R, and that he possessed, obtained, furnished, or administered drugs to any person, including self, except as legally directed, as well as the violation of 73-15-29-1H, and that he is addicted to or dependent on alcohol or other habit-forming drugs, or has misappropriated medication. Specifically, it was agreed to that Mr. Odom, while working at Merit Medical Center, Wesley in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, diverted narcotic medications. In a statement to the board dated September 6, 2017, Mr. Odom admitted to diverting medications for approximately 9 to 13 months by taking out narcotics early, as well as by pulling extra narcotics. Mr. Odom is here today on his petition to have his nursing license restored. He carries the burden to show to this board why he is safe, fit, and competent to return to the practice of nursing. I ask that the board consider all evidence today duly admitted and render a decision that is aligned with the interest of protection of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Mr. Odom?
Yes, sir.
You may begin with presentation of your case.
I'm sorry, what does that mean?
Any statements you have regarding why the board should restore your license, you can make those at this time.
Oh, okay. I agree with what was just read. I diverted medications and became addicted to opiates. It was the worst time in my life. When I finally was caught, to say, it felt like this great burden came off of me, because I was relieved that it was about to be over. That meaning I was going to get help for my addiction. Went to rehab. Learned a lot about myself, about others. Going into it, I thought that I was just the type of person that was taking opiates simply because I liked them. The doctor I spoke with in the rehab therapy explained to me that that's the most dangerous type of addict, because some people that take those types of medications, those types of drugs, can't stand it. They are more apt to become sick, nauseated, sleepy, drowsy, can't function. He said my type of addiction is dangerous because it doesn't do me that way. I enjoyed it. The effects of it, I was able to function somewhat as best you can under the influence of drugs, but I didn't get nauseated. I didn't get sick. I was able to cut the grass, clean the house, take care of stuff that I was supposed to do. The doctor, that was the most profound statement that he said to me that actually made sense about why I possibly had gotten myself into this terrible situation. talking to the counselors, I found out that I probably wasn't just taking that medication because of the effects. It was more of a coping mechanism for stress, dealing with bad times in life. And I agreed with that. At first I didn't, but that was enlightening to start a new life after the addiction. It was an eye opener to see what I'd done to myself. Excuse me. Because I wasn't able to deal effectively with bad situations, I would call them stresses. I had to relearn that through outpatient therapy, through prayer. I guess I would almost say, excuse me, that I was in denial about why I was taking the drugs. I didn't want to accept the fact that I couldn't handle stress and deal and cope effectively. But after becoming sober, I realized that I had to relearn how to handle my own life. And unfortunately, I'm talking about things that to a lot of people that have incredible stresses in their life, mine were minimal. And so I just had to learn how to deal with good days and bad days in a sober way. I lost my moral compass. I was raised in a Christian family. Drugs and drinking were not part of the family. So I wasn't raised that way, or I didn't grow up in an environment that way. I grew up in a healthy, safe, sound environment. And I think I strayed from God because that's not who I am. Since getting out of rehab, tried to reestablish my Christian values through prayer, church, and every day is a struggle. I mean, I wouldn't wish an addiction to opiates as on anybody. It breaks my heart to know that the young people, old people, whoever are struggling with this. It's a terrible thing, and it makes you do things that you would not normally do. The withdrawals are horrible. They take you places. I would compare it to being a zombie. You in active addiction are almost not human. Spiritually, you're beat. Mentally, you're beat. Eventually, it takes a toll on your health. And my heart goes out to anyone that's suffering in that way today. I would think that I've learned a lot about myself, about the nature of the beast with addiction. I'm not sure if I would take opiates again if I caught on fire. I'm that scared of them. That's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Odom. Mr. Newsike.
This time, the state would move that exhibits B1 through B8 be admitted into evidence.
Mr. Odom, do you have any objection to any of the exhibits?
So, Mr. Odom, you are an addict,
Yes,
and you were an addict while practicing nursing.
correct.
And as an addict,
Ms. Iger, those exhibits are admitted. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
as an addict practicing nursing, you diverted medications from your place of employment, correct?
Correct.
What medications?
Versed, fentanyl, and Dilaudid.
And of those medications, what is your drug of choice?
It was fentanyl.
And do you have a sobriety date, Mr. Odom?
September 6, 2017.
And how do you define a sobriety date?
By not using substances.
By not using substances, either intentionally or negligently. So complete abstinence, would that be fair?
Yes.
I would ask you, Mr. Odom, in examining the drug screens that you've provided today in your packet, if you follow along with me at Exhibit B8, the restoration packet that you provided the board, would you agree that of the drug screens you provided, there are approximately 6 with a dilute result?
Yes.
Do you have any explanation for that result?
None other than drank too much water before the test. I assume.
And taking a look at May 14th, 2018, if you'll look along with me at your restoration application on those drug screens, would you please identify the result for that drug screen? Again, May 14, 2018.
I'm sorry, give me just a second.
And perhaps you could simply agree to the result, but if you would prefer to identify the paperwork, I will wait. But what I am examining identifies a positive result for May 14, 2018. Would you agree?
I read that, yes. I saw the result. I called Affinity and they told me it was dilute.
So you have no explanation then for a positive screen, again, paperwork that you presented to the board of May 14th, 2018.
Right.
And you would agree that May 14th, 2018 is in fact after your sobriety date of September the 6th, 2017.
Correct.
So does your sobriety date stand to reason as September 6th when you have a positive screen for a controlled substance in May of 2018?
Again, I called Affinity. I was told that the specimen was dilute. It says no one, I'm sorry, I wasn't aware that it showed a positive test for a controlled substance. I
Did
didn't.
you not submit the documentation contained in the restoration application?
Yes.
So did you not review the documentation that you submitted in the restoration application?
All right, then you're referring to the drug screening tests?
Correct.
I did review it, and I had called Affinity regarding that test, and I was told that it was dilute.
So is it your testimony today then, Mr. Odom, that you did not ingest a controlled substance on or around May 14th, 2018?
I did not.
And all that we have is your word to take for that. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
May I ask what the test was positive for? Because
Mr. Odom, right now, I'm examining your materials, the materials you have provided. If you wish to examine with me, provide only a result of positive. There is no further identification.
I did not take anything on or around that date. Not knowingly, I did not. And I called the drug screening company and was told that it showed a dilute specimen.
Without belaboring the point, Mr. Odom, I'm going to move on to the other materials that you provided. Did you in fact obtain treatment after surrendering your nursing license?
I did.
What treatment have you undergone?
Was in an inpatient rehab facility in Brandon, Mississippi. And then I attended outpatient treatment at Hattiesburg through Clearview.
And have you provided documentation to that effect today?
Yes, sir.
That would be contained in your restoration application. I believe there are 3 stapled documents which are identified as Pine Belt Mental Health Care Resources. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
So would it be accurate to state that you were admitted to Pine Belt Mental Health Care Resources for individual or for inpatient treatment on or about March 20th, 2018?
Yes.
And you completed or were discharged on or about June 15th, 2018?
Yes.
And subsequent to that, you attended outpatient treatment with the same provider?
Yes.
Okay. And lastly, you were given a discharge summary with aftercare recommendations. Is that accurate?
Yes.
In examining the discharge summary, the facility provided a referral, support, recovery services identified on the first page of 2, wherein it states client is recommended to continue individual counseling and family counseling. Client is also recommended to attend recovery support services and attend 3 meetings per week. Now, you testified earlier, Mr. Odom, that your drug use was partially in response to your inability to cope with stress. Is that accurate, fair to say?
I think, yes, that's a part in it. Yes, sir.
Okay, and that is bolstered today by the information I've just read, wherein you are recommended to continue counseling, both individual counseling, family counseling, recovery counseling. Have you done those things?
Attended some meetings through Clearview, through Zoom, and I've continued my AA meetings and through my church religious meetings.
What kind of meetings are the Clearview meetings?
It's an online course, online meeting through Zoom. Meets once a week. They call it aftercare. I was never officially enrolled in the aftercare, but began attending meetings with them on the computer, like we're doing today.
How many of those meetings did you attend?
20 approximately.
Have you provided any documentation of your attendance to those meetings today?
No, no, sir, I have not.
Have
And,
you attended?
I'm sorry. I'd like to point out that after my outpatient therapy was over, my understanding was not clear on aftercare. I thought that continued AA meetings and services through church were sufficient. So I was not admitted into aftercare directly after outpatient therapy was over.
And you have provided today documentation of your AA&A attendance?
Yes.
And how long and how often have you been attending AA&A?
Well, I've been attending it since I was going to AA meetings upon entering rehab September 6th on or about 2017. And up until the present, I don't have documentation past what the State Board of Nursing asked me to provide attendance sheets.
Would you agree that the final AA attendance sheet that you provided to the board has a documented date of August the 20th, 2019?
That sounds accurate.
Have you ceased attendance at AA&A since that time?
Have I? I'm sorry, I was. What
Are
was
you
your-
skip? Did you stop attending AA&A at that time?
No, not completely.
And you have no documentation of that further attendance?
I do not.
Why is that?
If I read my restoration packet correctly, I needed to provide is it a year's worth of AA or NA attendance meetings? So I didn't get sheets signed after that point, which was probably 13 months worth of signed sheets.
And so what does your AA&A attendance look like today?
I go when I can. I'm working more. Once a week, sometimes twice a week. I may skip a week.
So when you can. So it'd be fair to say then that it's not what you would call a priority.
Attending AA, you're referring to as being a priority?
That's what I'm asking, sir.
It's on my mind every day. I don't always go, but I read the big book. I pray. I talk with other former addicts. I work with one. He's really involved in the AA group meetings that I attended the most. Saying it's not a priority. Every day is a priority to stay sober for me. Whether I attend AA every day or not, or I would say that attending the meetings became less of a priority, maybe just because financial reasons, having to work more.
So finances then, again, placed over priority of AA attendance. You would agree, Mr. Odom, that any addict in recovery would prioritize sobriety. But would you further agree that this board, in its role of examining your safety, your sobriety, can only examine the evidence that it's presented?
Correct, yes.
And you are testifying today that you have not made a priority of attending AA, NA, and appear not to view that in conflict with your sobriety. I find that a little problematic, although I'm not the expert, and I would defer to the board to make a judgment regarding your attendance. Mr. Odom, do you have a sponsor currently?
I do.
How long have you had that sponsor?
When I first started attending AA, probably 2018, 2000, yeah.
Is your sponsor active in AA and A?
Yes.
And yet you are not.
Well, he's relapsed.
And so, oh, okay, so the AA/NA then is only for those persons who have relapsed. Is that your understanding?
No. It's what would your question again?
The reason I'm giving you several questions regarding this, Mr. Odom, is that addiction is a long-term disease. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir. It's a lifelong disease.
And the board is charged with ensuring that someone who is re-entering the profession has adequate management of that lifelong disease. So today you have presented information that you in fact have tapered off from your AA/NA attendance. And I would put to you, Mr. Odom, that that's a cause for concern for the board. What other methods do you have in place to ensure your sobriety?
To me, it's religious. It's a moral issue. AA is important to me. The meetings now that I'm working aren't as easy to make. Working 12 hours a day. As you can imagine, probably this situation I got myself in has put me and my family in a tremendous financial burden. I was focused more on getting sober in the beginning. I feel like at some point I wasn't working. My focus was entirely upon getting sober and getting help. Then as the bills began to pile up, I had to find some form of income. Working 12 hours a day, doing physical labor takes a toll on me, being a 49-year-old male. So there were nights I simply just went to bed so I could get up and do it again the next day. So AA meetings did taper off.
What is your current employment?
I am a contract driver for FedEx. It starts at 5:30 or 6 in the morning and ends until I get through, which usually lasts 10 to 12 hours, especially during this time of year, which they call the peak season with Christmas and not as many people shopping because of the coronavirus.
And how long have you held this employment?
This job has lasted probably 2 months, 2.5 months, maybe 3.
What was your employment prior to this job?
I worked with a different distributing company, driving. Again, distributing drinks to stores, curb stores, grocery stores.
And what were the hours for that employment?
About the same.
The 12-hour days delivering drinks to stores, is that right?
Yes. Some days were shorter than others. It just depends upon the what they need, you know.
And how long did you hold that position?
Probably about 10 months.
Did you have any employment other than employment as a nurse prior to that job?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that question. Did I
Did
have
you have
any?
a job before this, before the distributing job?
Oh, I was cutting grass with my sponsor.
How long did you do that?
I still do that today. I don't do it as much when I'm working, but if he calls me on a day off, on a Saturday or something, I help him still some. But when I wasn't working with the distributing companies and driving and delivering, I was working with him, cutting grass.
And Mr. Odom, what was the reason for your change in employment from the distributing company to the contract driver?
They would not promote me as I didn't have a commercial driver's license, and they had promised that they would train me, but they didn't. So I left that job and went to school for a commercial driver license.
And so you incurred no disciplinary actions of any kind in your employment over the last few years?
Not since the Wesley Medical Hospital job.
No failed drug tests?
No.
Have you submitted a drug test with the 2 previous companies you mentioned?
Yes. Well, to obtain a commercial driver's license, you have to submit tests. And if you have any accidents, such as, backing over a mailbox or driving accidents, you are required to submit tests through, I guess it would be the Mississippi Department of Transportation. But I haven't had to submit a test. I haven't had any accidents.
More questions before I finish up, Mr. Odom. Again, just so that the board has a complete understanding of the efforts that you're undertaking to protect your sobriety, have you attended any individual counseling?
Individual counseling since outpatient therapy was over, you're saying?
That's correct.
Just other than doing the Zoom meetings online, some with the Clearview treatment facility. I haven't been to an individual counseling session with anybody, I think.
But you did not attend Pine Belt Mental Health, Forest County for individual counseling?
As an outpatient?
Correct.
Yes, 3 times a week, I believe it was, for 15 weeks.
and that is as an outpatient. Did you attend family counseling at the USM Marriage and Family Clinic?
I did not.
Okay, and it was recommended that you attend family counseling by your discharge summary. Why did you not attend family counseling?
I couldn't afford it.
Fair enough.
We sought counseling through the church.
And to be fair to the panel, in examining evidence before them today, what evidence do you have of that counseling that you attended with the church?
There's no documentation of that.
You also submitted as part of your packet continuing education. I see that you submitted courses in compassion fatigue. Don't forget to care for yourself while caring for others. The nurse with substance use disorder, moving past the impaired nursing label. And abuse, helping women and their children. Could you please provide a takeaway, Mr. Odom, from the nurse with substance use disorder, moving past the impaired label?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. Provide a takeaway?
A takeaway, meaning something that you've learned, a point that you recall from the educational course of which you submitted completion. Did you complete the course, Mr. Odom?
I did, yes. You should have the certificate of completion in the packet. I'm looking at it here.
I do.
These are online courses.
My question would be, okay. My question is simply, what did you take away? What did you learn from that online course?
Let me look at the course for a second, if you'll just give me a moment so I can refresh my memory. The one specifically you're asking about is the nurse with the substance use disorder or the compassion fatigue.
That is correct.
To me, what I learned from that is to do the right thing. I've had so much support from others, people that I used to work with. And of course, I've been looked down upon by others, and some that I've worked with because of my situation. Moving past that label to me means that I got to do what's right, no matter what people may say or people may think of what I've done. The past can't be changed. I can only move forward from here to make today and tomorrow, living in the moment, making the right decision. Hopefully others would see that and change their mind about judgment toward me. But other than trying to do the right thing, there's nothing I can do about that.
And Mr. Odom, when is the last time that you practiced nursing?
On or about September 6th of 2017. I have worked as a contract employer for a company called Zoll Life Vest. I don't work as a nurse, but it is a medical profession with cardiac patients. I basically go to people's homes or hospital or nursing home, go to patients wherever they are, and give them this device that is an external defibrillator for people that have heart conditions with low ejection fractions and are susceptible to dangerous arrhythmias. The job is not full-time. It's only as needed, and it's not in an RN capacity, but having a background as a cardiac nurse probably helped me get that job. But the
So
last
your
time,
last actual practice as an RN was with Merritt Wesley over 3 years ago.
correct.
How confident are you in your skill set as a nurse if you are able to return to the profession?
Well, I have a lot of experience because I worked as a nurse since 1993. So adding that up, that's 20-something years of working as an RN. Taking 3 years to take care of myself, I've learned a lot about others and maybe what they're going through, situations like mine. Psychiatric nursing appeals to me. Working as a detox nurse, if I'm able to work as an RN again, psychiatric nursing kind of appeals to me. Cardiac rehab, just patients that are needing exercise therapy type monitoring to rehab their heart after, say, bypass surgery, appeals to me. I think my skill set is very suitable for those positions. I would not want to walk into an ICU or an ER and try to take care of a patient. That's just those things don't appeal to me anymore.
And so, Mr. Odom, if the board saw fit to grant you a license today, given the time of more than 3 years that you've been out of practice, if they determined that you needed to take some kind of educational offering, even a refresher course, would you be willing to do that?
Absolutely.
If the board today decided to grant your license, albeit impose a period of probation, wherein you would be required to submit to monthly drug testing, would you do that?
Absolutely.
If the board today decided to grant your license as a condition upon you obtaining a new chemical dependency assessment and complying with any recommendations by that assessor, would you submit to that?
Absolutely. I've already spoke with Isaac. He is at Clearview. The aftercare was pointed out to me in the paperwork. And he just said that I would have to be readmitted. And if the board wants that, he's willing to readmit me. It would just cost financially. I couldn't afford it at the time, but he said he is willing to readmit me and work with me if that's what's recommended.
And are you willing to commit to attending AA/NA meetings a minimum of 3 times per week should the board decide to grant you a license?
Yes.
No further questions?
Thank you, counsel. Mr. Odom, do you have anything further you'd like to share with the board regarding your application for restoration?
No, sir. I don't believe so. I again would like to thank the board for your time. I hope everyone has a good holiday and stays safe. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Odom. Are there any questions from Mr. Odom from board members?
Good morning, Mr. Odom. I'm Sandra Culpepper, and I have a few questions for you. I noticed on your NAAA meetings What did you learn to help you cope when you feel under that pressure or when you're in the situation where you may be around those medications to kind of help you overcome those things?
What did I learn through the NA and the AA meetings about that?
As far as your coping mechanisms related to your drug use?
Well, to me, everyone has good days and everyone has bad days. It's how you handle it. One of the things that I think I took from it was identifying my feelings and being able to, as simple as it sounds, identify feeling frustrated or feeling resentful or angry. The feeling wheel, I don't know if you know of it, but was given to me, and it's so in depth. There's more to how you feel about a situation rather than happy, sad, glad, mad. You know, it gets more detailed and in depth with feelings of anger, resentment, discouragement, kind of being able to quickly identify what's going on and approaching that and learning how to deal with it, to me was an eye-opener, I guess. Not resorting to have to go and use a substance to feel good about a bad situation, facing a bad situation. And to me, it's prayer. That's one of the biggest things I rely on. Falling back on my Christian beliefs, I guess. Prayer was the solution, so to speak, for me. The AANA meetings, surprisingly, to me, are based on they like to call it a higher power, because I suppose they don't want to offend folks that don't believe in a God. So they kind of sneak it in as a higher power. But the NA, to me, is based on a God faith plan that almost seems to come from the Bible.
Thank you, Mr. Odom. I just have two more questions, and they're going to be super quick for you. In reading your packet that you submitted, I did see that you were currently under the Board of Nursing in 1995. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so during that one-year course that you were under us, did you ever have a dilute or positive screen?
No, I did not.
And then,
I'm not sure about the dilute. That's been a few years back, so I can't positively say nothing was dilute then, but there was no positive screen.
I just want to clarify that this would be your second time with us. And the last thing I want to ask you, ultimately, at the end of the day, me and my fellow board members have to make sure that we protect the public. And so my question to you is, what assurances can you give this panel that you are safe to practice, especially related to the fact that you've had a decrease in your NA meetings?
Well, I wish I could tell you what all I've learned about myself and through the meetings I've had. I've learned the value of hard work, supporting the family, my faith in God, submitting random drug screens, going to meetings, aftercare. I just want the chance to prove it to you. I'm not sure I knew the answer to that question.
Thank you, Mr. Odom.
Further questions from the board? Yes.
Mr. Odom, I'm Laura Moore. Thank you for being with us today. I just have a few questions for you. My first one being, it said that you had been diverting drugs initially at Merritt Wesley for 9 to 13 months. Did that begin at that time, or was there any previous drug use outside of the hospital, or even in the hospital before that 9 to 13 months? Was this a new thing for you at that time, or had you had addiction issues in the past?
To me, no. I think the short answer would be, but to me, it started. I'd had back problems in the past, and I'd taken opiates that were prescribed to me, and I knew that I liked it, and I think that I put it away. You know, I didn't pursue it. I didn't have friends that took drugs. I didn't hang out with anybody that did those things. I have 5 kids, boys, and there were broken bones, football injuries. I think one of them had 2 broken arms from a accident. There were one of them had a broken leg from playing football, and another one broke his ankle. And all at once, we had all these narcotics in the house. And the kids healed surprisingly fast. So these extra narcotics were lying around, and I would take those. And again, with my type of personality toward opiates, like the effects of it. To me, that's what started the diversion in the hospital, was the availability of narcotics in the home, and then the availability of narcotics in the hospital. And then it turned into a vicious cycle that I found myself as a full-blown addict. Does that answer your question?
My next question on that would be that, should one of your children or another close family member have an accident, have a prescription for opiates, how do you think you would handle that situation? Being that you would have easy access.
Right.
How do you think you would be in that situation?
We've been in that situation, and I'm not in control of the medication. A family member would say would give the medications to a child. And to be honest with you, as I don't want to be responsible for that unless I have to. I suppose I would, for the sake of the child, but I'm scared to death of them. I would, unless my child is just really hurting, I'm not sure I would want him to take them, because I'm that afraid of it. I believe they're overprescribed. Maybe the public has caught on to that. And like I said, children heal so amazingly fast, and the last thing I'd want to do was give my child medication and something happened in his life because he was taking too much pain medicine for a broken arm.
So if you were back in the hospital working, and you did have access to opiates, how well do you think you could control, I guess, your desire, or do you feel that you could handle being around any type of opiate or having any type of access to opiates?
I'm scared of opiates, put it that way. I think in hospitals, if it's done the right way, nurses maybe wouldn't get in the situation they're in, because, and I'm not trying to tell on anybody, but I just want to say that there's always supposed to be 2 nurses that waste narcotics, so that there's a witness, I suppose, but it's not always done that way. I wish it was, but nurses are so busy. And if I was back in a hospital, I would have a witness with me, just to make sure, that there's an accountability there. That's just my knee-jerk answer, I suppose. But again, like I said, I don't want narcotics in my home. And I don't want to ever have to take them, God forbid, if I get in a car accident or something like that. It would be something I would try to avoid at all costs.
And my last question for you is about your sponsor. You said that recently your sponsor relapsed. Have you attempted to get a new sponsor?
I have not. I still talk with him. He was in a treatment facility somewhere in Pensacola, and I spoke with him on the phone, asked how he's doing. You know, we talked about situations we get ourselves in. He's since been out. I go by his house and talk with him. And as far as getting a new sponsor, I have not.
Some of my concerns are really with, especially on your aftercare plan, with some things that they recommend and things that we know are extremely helpful maintaining sobriety. And you know, I feel that I need some assurance that this is something that you would maintain and do without being required, in the sense of maintaining your sobriety, knowing that having a sober sponsor is extremely helpful in maintaining sobriety, attending your AA and A meetings. You know, like here it says talking with a sponsor at least 3 times a week. Things that are like that are very important in maintaining sobriety. I think, you know, I would feel, I'm concerned in the sense of that's not something that you are taking priority on, as far as having things in place. If you were to be in a situation around opiates, what do you have in place that could help you to maintain your sobriety? I think I might have muddied that a little bit, but essentially, those are just my concerns at this time, is that some of these things that were recommended and that we know work are not really being done. Do you feel that without a sponsor you can maintain sobriety, or do you feel that that's something that you need?
A sponsor is very helpful. I think I do need it. I need to know he's there. As far as talking on a daily basis, you know, I don't do that as much anymore, just because I'm busy working. And and I don't really just have one sponsor, I guess you would call it. There are other people in my life. I would call them a sponsor. Maybe I didn't sit down and work the steps with, but they certainly know the steps I've taken. And I'm able to call them at any time and have. Some of them are family members. Some of them are just people that I've met through AA that I have numbers. Some of them have even passed away, you know, in the last 3 years. So I think it's an ongoing process. There are sponsors out there available. My sponsor, Marty, unfortunately went through his relapse, and, you know, he was gone for 6 weeks at least. But there were other people that weren't officially my sponsor, but I talked with them about my life and checking on Marty through them, and they're always available. The resources are there if you want it, and it's a relief to know that anybody is just a phone call away, no matter what time of the day or night. Preachers are even available. They've given me their numbers. I have a friend that's a preacher that I went to high school with. I talk with him occasionally. He and I were in high school together. We played football together. And he knows me. He's known me for a long time, and we both know guys that have had problems and with these types of situations. And it's easy to talk to someone that you've known all your life, and that you can just kind of reconnect and to start to take life more seriously. As he's my age, so you know, I'm just not a kid anymore. So it's time to stop acting like one.
Thank you, Mr. Odom.
I have, Mr. Odom, I apologize. I have just one more question for you. Are you still currently living in Hattiesburg?
Yes, I am.
So have you got prospective employment? Because I recall you stated that you would like to work in a rehab unit, and I'm familiar with the area. So have you reached out to work in these areas or any other prospective work?
Not as a nurse, you're asking, right?
That is correct.
Yes, I've talked with them. The jobs really weren't available. There were some jobs, even as a nurse's aide, but I had to go back to school for that. A nursing assistant, I think it's called. My best option at the time, other than working through the cardiac defibrillator company, Zoll, was to, luckily I have a good driving record and was able to get a commercial driver's license.
I'm just wanting to clarify, Mr. Odom, what area of nursing are you wanting to be in?
Oh,
Because
okay,
that's going to help us.
right.
Where your intention is going to be to work.
I would like to work, like I said earlier, a cardiac rehab nurse. Working in a hospital doesn't necessarily appeal to me. I've done that since 1993. The psychiatric nursing, I have done that. I worked at East Mississippi and Meridian, so I have some experience there, over 2 years, and I enjoyed the job. I've learned a lot by putting myself in the situation I'm in. So psychiatric nursing and this kind of go hand in hand. I mean, everyone that's a psych patient isn't a former or current drug addict, but there's a lot of issues that that are kind of go together with drug addicts and psych patients. So
Thank
those are the main two things. I like working with heart patients, and I also like working with I worked in psych, and I enjoyed working in psych.
Thank you for your answer, Mr. Odom.
I'm even a TB nurse. I've looked at those jobs in the past, and there for a while, I was talking to someone about being a TB nurse through the state. Those types of jobs would appeal to me. Something that's outside of a hospital.
Any further questions from the board members? Based on this testimony, anything further, Mr. Mutiger?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I believe I would have just one follow-up question. Just one moment, if you will. Mr. Odom, is AA necessary for you?
Yes, I get a lot out of it. It is necessary. I can't take priority over me keeping the lights on and paying my heating bill, but it's definitely a priority.
So it's fair to say your sobriety is secondary to your financial obligations?
I wouldn't say it's secondary, but they're close.
All right, thank you.
At this time, if there are no further questions, we can begin with closing statements.
I would like to elaborate again if I can.
Go ahead, Mr. Odom.
I don't want the board to feel like AA is not a priority to me. It is. I enjoy AA. I get a lot out of it. The financial burden that I put myself in, losing a home, unfortunately, not wanting to have to live on the street or perhaps move back in with my mother. Is also a priority in my life. AA being very important to me. Going to different meetings around town. I've been to all of them. My role in AA would probably turn into more of a being a sponsor for someone. As I have had some experience in it, I've run AA meetings at Rebos. I don't know, called the chairperson, conducted meetings. Again, I have 5 children. I have to pay car insurance, whatever they need, keep them fed, clothed. AA is a priority to me, and it kind of goes hand in hand with being sober to support my family as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Odom. Counsel.
I don't doubt Mr. Odom's sincerity. Sincerity is not enough. Mr. Odom is attempting to gain access back to the profession of nursing. The profession of nursing is not something merely, it's not merely a vehicle to financially provide for Mr. Odom or his family. This is a profession that it carries with it the utmost importance in terms of care, in terms of, let's put it simply, people's lives are at stake. I'm afraid today that what I've heard from Mr. Odom is a focus on his role as a financial provider. I don't degrade that focus. Rather, I intend to highlight Mr. Odom's focus on financial provider as somehow more important than his sobriety. And to me, that's problematic for this board. Sobriety is absolutely necessary to practice nursing, to do it safely, to provide good care to patients. This board, in examining the restoration application of Mr. Odom, must look at the evidence that's been presented by Mr. Odom to show that there are mechanisms in place. To put it simply, to show that he has at least figured out to some degree that he can be sober in his life and sober in the more challenging position of nursing, where he will have access again to the drugs of choice of fentanyl or other drugs such as Versed or Dilaudid. It's bigger than his tapering off of attendance at AANA. It causes concern. I don't know that Mr. Odom places the true value on the attendance of AANA or any other mechanism to ensure its sobriety. Again, I don't doubt Mr. Odom's sincerity. But it is imperative that going forward, if Mr. Odom is allowed to obtain a nursing license, that we have those mechanisms in place. that we don't simply accept his sincerity as evidence of his safety to return to practice. Now, Mr. Odom has provided 2 years of negative drug screens. He has provided 5 affidavits as required by the restoration application. He did attend treatment in or around 2018. But once again, he didn't follow all of the treatment recommendations. There's a bit of a pattern that emerges to where, again, sincerity may be present, but there doesn't appear to be a pattern of engagement of the mechanisms necessary to ensure his sobriety. So I would put to the board this: if you feel that Mr. Odom is safe to return to the practice of nursing, do so pursuant to a new chemical dependency evaluation. Have someone trained in the specialty of addiction evaluate Mr. Odom, someone more knowledgeable than I, determine what is necessary to maintain his sobriety, and have Mr. Odom be required to follow those recommendations. Continue drug screening. I would also lastly highlight it has been approximately 3 years since he's practiced as a nurse. I yield to the board's discretion as to how that interacts with his fitness, or rather competency, to return to the practice of nursing, whether it be a refresher course or other educational requirement. I ask you to examine that fact carefully. With that being said, I just ask that this board consider all evidence duly admitted. Render your decision within the interest of the protection of the public. And I implore you that if you do find Mr. Odom safe to return to practice, do so pursuant to a new evaluation, new recommendations, to provide him the structure necessary that this board can feel comfortable that his sobriety is ensured while practicing nursing. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. At this time, I'll entertain a motion,
I'll make the motion.
close termination. It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Adams, are you there?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Now I'll entertain a motion for the board to enter this executive session to deliberate on the matter regarding license number R802356.
I will make that motion.
It's been motioned. Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, that motion carries. The board will now exit to executive session. Mr. Odom, the board at this time will deliberate on your matter. You are welcome to remain on the line. We will return once the board has concluded its deliberations.
Thank you.
Calling Lou Odom.
Hey. What y'all doing now? Oh, I thought you said she was gonna be home. Oh, okay. Hey, I missed your call. I was okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, so really, those are big deer. That's weird. I wonder why those big deer are hanging out all together, with the same beater. Seems like because yeah.
Odom,
So, hold on one second. Yes.
put your line on mute. We can hear your phone conversation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
we are back on the record. At this time, I entertain a motion to return to regular session.
Make that motion.
I make a motion, we return to regular session.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The motion carries. We are now in regular session. Did you have something, counsel?
Simply awaiting the decision of the panel, Mr. Wiggins.
In the matter regarding license number R802356. Following deliberation, the board renders as follows. 60 months probation. Reinstated with drug-related stipulations. 60 months probation, 24 months of which will be prohibition of high acuity areas, indirect supervision, educational courses, max hours of work, 88 hours per 2 weeks, chemical and psychological evaluations. There will be a written order that will be submitted to the licensee. At this time, this concludes your case. We thank you, Mr. Odom, for being here today. Best of luck in your endeavors. You are excused.
Thank you, sir.
Huh? Oh, no, I was speaking to his reaction.
Choose to do so.
Hey, Wesley.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, before we begin, I just want to verify that you received Exhibit B9.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay, very good. We were waiting for a report from
Yes, ma'am.
Spectrum. And so I just wanted to make sure that you did receive that. So that makes your exhibit lists and exhibits collectively B1 through B9. Do you have any questions about that before we start?
No, ma'am.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
The next matter before the panel. Application for restoration of licensure. License number 1870376. Any preliminary matters, council?
Yes, at this time, the state would move that exhibits B1 through B9 be admitted into the record.
Now, is it Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Do you have any objections to the exhibits?
No, sir.
They will be admitted. Ms. Stevens, are you represented by counsel?
No, sir.
Do you understand you have the right to be represented by counsel?
Yes, sir.
Do you further understand that you have the right to question any witnesses that on your behalf or that the state presents?
Yes, sir.
At this time, I will note that there is a quorum. The order of the proceedings will be as follows. We will allow for opening statements. Any questioning of witnesses will be with direct examination, followed by cross-examination, and any redirect if necessary, followed by any questions from the board officers or the hearing officer. Once the conclusion of both sides is completed, we will have closing statements. The board will make findings of fact and conclusions of law and will render its decision in this matter, a copy of which will be mailed to the licensee. At this time, I'll ask that any witnesses be sworn in at this time.
Yes. Ms. Shanda Stevens will testify today.
Ms. Stevens, would you raise your right hand to be sworn in for your testimony, please?
Yes, of course.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this cause to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. I'll remind you that these hearings are open to the public. Again, the board may deliberate and make its decision in executive session. If there are no further preliminary matters, we will begin with opening statements. Ms. Stevens, you may make your opening statement at this time.
Thank you. And I just want to say that I did not come to my hearing as I was too sick after my license were revoked. I want you to know that I'm humble and grateful for this opportunity today to apologize to the profession as a whole. After years of counseling and rehab, I am stable and working full-time in children's psychiatric facility. And I just want to say that you saved my life by taking my license away. And I am here today to say, first and foremost, that I apologize to the profession.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Counsel, you may proceed.
We are here today on the petition of Ms. Shanda Stevens, AKA Shanda Stevens Smith. Ms. Smith had her license revoked before a hearing panel in 2015, which was finalized March 8, 2016. And pursuant to Part 2825 of the Mississippi Code, Administrative Code, which are the rules of procedure, specifically Rule 1.12, sets out application procedures for restoration licensees. Before the panel today, the board must consider whether or not Ms. Stevens not only has submitted a complete application, but also that the conduct of the applicant subsequent to the revocation, surrender, or suspension is deserving of having her license restored, that she was compliant with all restoration requirements, whether petitioner or Ms. Stevens is in violation of any applicable statute, board order, rule, regulation of the board, and that the evidence of the restoration applicant's rehabilitation efforts, as well as her nursing competency. So all of those things the board should consider in this hearing today in light of the burden that Ms. Smith carries.
Thank you, counsel. Anything further?
Except the state would be ready when the panel is.
All right, Ms. Stevens?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At this time, you are able to share with the board any information in support of your application for restoration.
Yes, sir. I believe I'll just start at the beginning. I lost my job because I diverted medication from the hospital. I had never had a substance abuse problem. I got Lyme disease in 2013, and was sent to the pain clinic and was put on Lortab and fentanyl patches. I weaned myself off of that after being treated for Lyme disease for 18 months at home. I never did seek out professional help, although I believe now that I should have at that time, coming off of those medications directly from the pain clinic. So in 2015, January of 2015, my license were revoked from diverting medication from the hospital. After that, being married to an attorney, I thought that I was going to commit suicide and not have to worry about any of this process. That was my plan at that time. Since then, and through months and months of very in-depth counseling and psychiatric evaluation and continuing with my psychiatrist even today, I'm a healthy 42-year-old woman with 2 children who has made it through divorce and now works with children in a psychiatric clinic, inpatient. And I could not be more grateful for my life just as it is today.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Counsel?
Good morning, Ms. Stevens.
Good morning.
And I guess just for the record, you're listed in the licensing system as Shanda Stevens, but I see from the order in 2015, you're also known as Shanda Stevens Smith. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Are you still Shanda Stevens Smith?
I am legally. I've not changed my name since the divorce.
Okay. I just wanted to verify that, as our licensing system, I believe, still has you as Shanda Stevens. So if I address you as Ms. Stevens, that's why.
That's perfectly great.
Okay. And just for the record, can you verify your current mailing address?
It's a 105 White Street, Union, Mississippi, 39365.
All right. And, Ms. Stevens, just to verify, you did receive a copy of the Rules of Procedure, Part 2825, via email from me, did you not?
I did.
Okay. And specific to the proceeding today, I just want to verify your understanding that your application must be complete for the board to consider restoring your license. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you also understand that the board will deliberate as you have provided information and evidence that you have been restored in terms of being sober, and that you have competency and rehabilitative efforts have been made so that you may practice safely?
Yes,
Do you
ma'am.
understand that?
Ma'am.
Yes, okay. And then finally, you understand that if the board should consider restoring your license, that you understand you could be on no criminal probation or have any criminal act pending against you, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So you did submit for the board's consideration an application for restoration, did you
Yes.
not?
I did.
Okay, let's look at that application. And I believe on question number 9, you answered yes, and then questions 1 through 8, you answered no, correct?
That's correct.
And so number 9 discusses or asks you, have you ever received counseling or treatment connected with the revocation, surrender, suspension, denial of your license? And you answered yes, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and before I ask questions regarding your treatment history, I do want to reference for the board panel Exhibit B6, and I would ask that you retrieve that exhibit just for a few questions.
Sure.
Just let me know when you have it.
Have it.
I'm sorry, Ms. Smith, did you say you did have it?
I do have it.
Okay, okay. I was just waiting to make sure that you could, I didn't want to proceed without you having the information before you. I'm looking specifically at page 2 of B6 as when you had your hearing on December 2nd, 2015, to which you've already testified you were not present. The board did find you guilty of, as it states in paragraph 5, the allegations that were in the complaint as set forth in charge 1. Do you agree with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then more specifically, the board panel found that while you were employed as a registered nurse at Anderson Regional Medical Center in Meridian, Mississippi, you diverted Lauded, Norco, Percocet from other patients for a period of approximately 4 weeks. Would you agree that's what the board panel found?
Yes, ma'am.
That you also admitted on January 15, 2015, that you diverted approximately 2 Percocet and 4 Norcos from the facility. Do you agree with me? That's what the board found?
I believe so.
Okay. And then finally, in paragraph 5 from your final order, the board found as a finding of fact that on or about January 28, 2015, that you tested positive for opiates and morphine on a reasonable suspicion drug screen collected with your employment at the time, which was Anderson Regional Medical Center.
Yes.
Okay, and then you were subsequently terminated. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay, I ask you those questions because you are here today asking the board for restoration of your license, and it's important that the panel understand the reason behind how you lost your license. Would you agree with me on that?
I do.
Okay, so that's Exhibit B6. So you are here before this panel, a little over 4 years. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay, and you're asking them to restore your license. So in light of the reasoning of why you lost your license, let's go back to question 9 on your application and let's walk the panel through your treatment history. Okay, can you do that?
Yes.
Okay.
I first began my treatment journey at Region 8 in Hazelhurst, Mississippi. Sorry, I'm trying to find my aftercare section. I was there for approximately 3 weeks, and they put me on some medications because I've been on SSRIs at that time since the age of 18. I was not feeling that they were working. They added a couple of new medicines and I reacted horribly. I had to go to the crisis center while I was there. In whole, I did not feel that that was going to be the end of my journey. I did not feel well leaving at all. I told my family I'm still not well. I'm not functioning. And time rocked on. the following year, which was 2017, I basically had a nervous breakdown. Time is very much fluid during all of this until the last 2 years because I just was not well. And we found Dr. Maticasera after I was inpatient again in Newton County. And he has put me back together. That's my current psychiatrist that is there in Jackson, Mississippi. So I did 2 inpatient sessions and two outpatient with him. And I continue to see him to this day and have outpatient counseling with a private therapist.
All right, and I want to sort of sum this up, Ms. Stevens. So you mentioned Region 8.
Mhm.
You did include in your restoration application under treatment records, and it's probably the 6th page, give or take, behind that tab. And I'm looking specifically at the certificate that says Region 8 residential treatment.
Mhm.
I mean, when you're there.
Okay. And
Okay.
there,
Okay, I want to ask you a question about that because I want to make sure I understand your recent testimony. You stated that you did not stay long with Region 8, but the certificate says you completed residential treatment, phase
Okay.
1. Can you explain what that is that you completed?
well, I completed the detox and the residential 3-week detox program. That was the, I guess, acute phase of treatment.
Mhm. Okay. And I noted right behind that certificate, there is a certificate from Region 8, again, that you completed anger management.
Right.
I think that was on the same day,
Mhm.
11/6/2015.
Yes.
Requirement of Region 8, or was that a
Right.
result of any diagnosis, or is that your?
It was a requirement to graduate from Region 8.
Okay.
This was the beginning of drug court for me. Region 8, the requirements for drug court to get into drug court was to do the 3 weeks of detox before they would take me in.
All right. And so ultimately, the second page of your treatment information that you provided the board, ultimately the effective date that termed your time with Region 8 was November 9, 2015, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then we marched forward about 2 years later, June 2017, when you completed a program with Sycamore. Is that correct?
Right. But what should come after that is my beginning of drug court. I only included my graduation from drug court. I did 3 years in drug court. So there was multiple documents, and I maybe should have included some of that. I just included the actual graduation certificate.
No, that's okay. We'll get to drug court questions because you have a separate tab for that.
Okay.
What I was referencing is right after, at least in this application, right after the certificate for completing anger management,
Mhm.
I'm seeing the Sycamore
That's
discharge.
correct.
Okay, and so I was just wanting to visit a little bit more about that. So you were admitted there March 27, 2017, and this was inpatient, outpatient treatment that you received, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and so roughly this was for about
3 months.
okay, that's right. And you were discharged then. They actually included a diagnosis of bipolar disorder with psychosis as a principal diagnosis.
That is
Correct.
correct. Mhm.
Okay. And then a secondary diagnosis of substance abuse, opiates, and alcohol, as well as ADD.
That's correct.
And you listed some medical conditions there. And specifically on this particular page, you listed some, there was listed here, discharge medications with dosage and frequency, correct?
That's correct.
Abilify, Zoloft, Trazodone, and I cannot read this other.
Tridentin.
Okay, all right. And I know we'll ask about current medications, but just for the sake of this particular exhibit,
Mhm.
are you taking any or all of these or none of these now?
I take Abilify, number 1. Number 2 is an SSRI, which we realized is what caused the psychosis to begin with. Cannot take SSRIs. So now I'm on an NRI. No sleeping medicine, no cogentin.
Okay. All right, what about number 3?
No, I don't need sleeping. Trazodone is sleeping medicine.
And number 4?
No.
Just wanted to have that for the record. So as to this exhibit, it's just Abilify. Right now, as we're discussing your 2017.
Abilify from this list, yes.
Okay, very good. All right, so from Sycamore, I believe you interacted there, had a psychiatric evaluation. And after your graduation from Sycamore, tell the board what happened next.
I continued with Dr. Maticasera. I was in drug court. I continued to see him once a month, and I continued with therapy with one of his employees who is a marriage and family therapist until I got very much active in AA in Meridian and found a therapist who is also my sponsor.
Okay. And is it your testimony again? I just want to verify you were still seeing Angela Asari?
I was seeing Angela at that time, yes, for therapy.
Okay. Are you seeing anyone now for therapy?
Yes, that is in the back on in the aftercare tab. I still see Dr. Betsy Storms.
Okay, that's right. Okay. In this section as well, I know that you included drug court. You actually included a letter that you had, I believe, submitted to the judge and the drug court staff, along with your test results from the judicial drug court, 10th Judicial Drug Court. Is that correct?
Yes, that day I had to test with both the Board of Nursing and drug court, and I tested with drug court at 8 a.m., drank a little bit more water to be able to test with the Board of Nursing, and it came back dilute. So I wanted to include that to make sure that you knew that that was a negative, that I was negative, within the same hour. Because I tested back to back or within a couple of hours of each other.
And you provided that test within your records for the board's review, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's the September 9, 2019 final report.
Yes.
Okay. And is it your testimony, before we get to the information about drug court, that you have tested negative each and every time that was submitted to you during your term with drug court?
I did.
All right. I'm going to go back to the application itself, Ms. Stevens, because I want to make sure that we track. You have listed in your application courses and seminars that you have attended, and I believe you listed 2 here, and you provided certificates for the board's review, correct?
Correct.
All right, you've also listed various methods that you've used to maintain and improve your knowledge. You've included that with statements and questions contained in number 2 and in number 3 of part C of your application. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there any of those any of that that you've submitted to the board panel that you specifically want to elaborate upon?
I really enjoyed the Phillips pharmacology course. Being out of nursing, it took me through all the systems that were important, the top drugs for all of those systems or common maladies. I especially enjoyed the psychotropic medication section because that's my passion personally. And I have the Kaplan NCLEX cards and an index, and I enjoy reviewing those, especially now that I'm back in a medical healthcare environment, I like to hear, you know, what the kids are taking now and look it up or read about it and find out what's new, because a lot changes every year, of course.
Part D of your application asks that you list community service. You have listed that for the board's review as charity meetings and attending AA. That be correct?
Correct.
Okay, let's move along. As part of your application for restoration, you are also to submit 5 affidavits.
Correct.
Would you agree with me on that?
Mhm.
And have you done so?
I have.
Okay, and the submissions of these affidavits are at least 3 of these individuals an RN.
Mhm.
And do they all understand, by virtue of having a conversation with you about why your license was revoked, suspended, or denied?
Yes. And
Okay. And in
they
fact-
all, I believe, included the exact words diverted medication.
Yes, I believe Ms. Harris understood that.
Yes.
And Mr. Smith, I believe he's your former husband.
Mhm. Suzanne Marshall. And then Erin Scruggs, RN, also diverting was her exact word as well.
All right, let's now proceed with your application under your tab of drug court.
Okay.
All right. So is it accurate to say on about October 27, 2015, that's when you were indicted for a count of obtaining a controlled substance by fraud in
That's
Lauderdale County?
That's correct.
Okay. And that matter was resolved by you entering into their drug court program, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the materials that you submitted for the panel's review is that you have paid your fine with the court, correct?
Yes.
$1,745.
Yes.
Okay. You've included information about the order placing you in the program. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that order was dated September 29th, 2016, correct?
Yes.
And I believe your testimony, you stated that you were in the drug court program for approximately 3 years. Is that correct?
That's correct. I graduated October of 2019.
Yes. And
I'm
then you've
sorry,
also
last
provided. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. It was the end of September. Yes. So just at 3 years.
And then you've also supplied for the panel's review, and I believe it's the second page under your drug court tab, that you have an order of expungement now. Is that
That's-
correct?
Mhm.
That order of expungement, it basically, as it's highlighted in paragraphs 2 and 3, it is ordering that all records, including indictment, including arrest, including your participation in the program, now be expunged from those records in Lauderdale County. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And has that order been signed?
Yes, it has.
Okay. Can you give us a date?
Well, it was January. If you'll look to the following.
I see it now. January 29th, 2020.
Yes,
think you-
unfortunately, they did not do it automatically. In drug court, the judge said you will not have to worry about any of this. It will be taken care of. But when I had a potential employer do a background check, it was still showing up. So we had to go through the actual, I'm not sure who's in Pearl, Mississippi, and what it all means, because I don't know the words to put to the legal terms, but they had to take care of it through Jackson. It was not,
Right.
so,
I can imagine it was NCIC because, the expungement will only go at the local level from the court system, but then that actual arrest that's inputted is the arresting officer. So I'm sure that's why you had to
okay.
do that. But it's been done,
Yeah,
right?
it has been done. Thank you. Mhm.
Okay. Anything more about drug court that you would like the panel to know before we move on to your aftercare?
Well, I just think it's the most ingenious and helpful thing that ever happened in my recovery. And I'm very so indebted to Judge Cotton for making drug court available in our area.
Okay. All right, in your aftercare, you have submitted calendars for the board's review, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and let's talk about what those calendars are evidencing. Where are you attending meetings?
Oh my goodness. We don't have AA in Newton County except once a week on Thursday nights, which has never been enough for me. I need 3, 4. I could go to a meeting every night. I do love AA, but it has not been convenient. I drive 45 minutes to Meridian or I drive 30 minutes to Philadelphia.
Okay, and what are those programs? Where do you attend?
The Firehouse in Meridian. And it's called the Club House in Philadelphia.
Okay, do you have a sponsor?
I do have a sponsor and I have 2. They're both in Meridian.
How often do you communicate with your sponsor?
We all get together once a week after the Thursday meetings after the Thursday lunch meeting. The problem I'm having in the last little bit is that I'm on night shift. So I do so want to stay at my job at Diamond Grove where I am working, but I've requested to move to days because 7 to 3 shift because I cannot get in sleep and I'm driving sleepy. I'm having a hard time making my meetings, and as you can see, I love to make meetings. I really do love to go.
And you stated you've got sponsors. You have a good support system. Now, you recently testified that you went through a divorce.
Yes.
Who was included in that support system?
So I still go to counseling. I have my mother who has never had any substance abuse problems. She's moved in part-time to take care of my children while I work nights. The divorce has gone great. We share custody and we live a mile apart. We've never gotten along better. The kids, we don't
All right,
even,
and what was your-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go
And we
ahead.
don't have a visitation schedule. He and I just work everything out between the 2 of us. And like I said, we live a mile apart.
And what would you say your drug of choice would be or was?
Opiates.
Okay. And what's your sobriety date?
My sobriety date is March the 15th of 2017.
And what medications do you currently take?
I take Abilify, 5 milligrams at night or day now because I go to bed in the morning. I take Strattera and SNRI, 60 milligrams twice a day. And I want to note that my medications have not changed in about 3, well, no, it's been about 2 years. It's been way more than a year. We've been very stable on these medications.
Okay. Are they prescribed by one provider?
Yes, the psychiatrist at Sycamore, Dr. Maticasera, is the only doctor that I will see.
And I heard you testify earlier that by taking you off the SSRs, that significantly changed your demeanor. Does that mean that it changed your diagnosis? Bipolar with the psychosis. I'm gonna make sure the board.
Right.
understands.
There is no more psychosis. That was an episode. That's in the DSM-5. They're different. It's very complicated and I don't understand it myself, but no, there is no more psychosis. That was at that time. He included a letter under the tab Aftercare. It's right behind all of the AA scheduled, of the AA meetings that were signed on these calendars. And
And I
you'll
believe-
he
Go ahead.
lists, you'll see that
Go
he
ahead.
lists my exact diagnoses there.
And that letter, Ms. Dave, that's dated August 31st, 2020.
That's
Correct.
correct. Mhm.
And we even have one which you alluded to seeing Dr. Betsy Storms. I believe that's the very next letter, August
That's
6th,
correct.
2020. Verifying your attendance. Is that
Yes,
correct?
I've seen her since August the 4th also. I've seen both of them since they've written these letters.
Yeah, and just for the record, the Dr. Matakasera, I may be mispronouncing that and I apologize. In this letter dated August 31st, 2020, it does state here that he wrote, you've been under his care since June 6, 2017 for a
Mhm.
diagnosis of bipolar disorder, attention deficit, hyperactivity disorder, and opioid dependence in remission. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. And then he mentions the psychotic illness prior to 3 months, but states in the past 3 years, you've become stable in
Mhm.
mood with the Abilify, and you're able to focus and concentrate with non-addictive and stimulant Strattera. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Now, the portion of the evidence, Ms. Stevens, that the board additionally needs to evaluate is, given all the information that you've submitted and given all your testimony today, how can you, or what can you say to this board that warrants convincing them that you deserve to have your license restored you, that you are rehabilitated, that you can be safe?
Mhm. Well, would never, I would never want to put myself in a situation where I might lose my children. I don't think that I deserve any special treatment, but I was married to an attorney. I cannot allow, I will lose custody of my children if I, step outside my boundaries in any way. And that is so important to me. And that is contingent upon how careful I am with my sobriety. I've put in place these safeguards of not stopping the same psychiatrist, not stopping the same therapist who I see in AA, not stopping my meetings. I'm so terrible at keeping up with these meeting sheets. I lost all of August. It was full, and September and October. I've only recently had in November and December, because my children have been out of school from COVID and I've not been sleeping during the day because they've had homeschool work to do. I've not made as many meetings, but I have these are my boundaries. I don't venture far from home because I'm scared to death of ever going back. That being said, I just continue to stay as fit as I can. And I believe that I would be a better nurse today than I ever was when I left the practice. I would be more conscientious every step of the way, even in my charting, than I ever was as a new nurse.
You mentioned that you are currently employed. Where are you currently employed?
Diamond Grove Center. It's a children's psychiatric inpatient facility.
How long have you been there?
Since July. I had to finish drug court first before I could get employment in any healthcare capacity, to my knowledge. That's the way I understood it.
And should the board entertain the prospect of restoring your license, do you have any prospective employment in nursing?
They have nursing positions there. I would like to stay there if they can get me on a day shift. The only other thing that I would even consider is clinic work.
The board again should entertain the prospect of restoring your license. Is it your testimony that you would be willing to do anything the board asks you to do?
Absolutely.
All right. Finally, Stevens, Exhibit B9. I just want to briefly touch on this exhibit. This is a cumulative test history report along with a compliance report just from our third-party drug company called Spectrum. Would you agree with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and your earlier testimony, you had stated that you knew about the dilute on September 9 and then subsequently retested. I just want to note here, there was one other dilute screen, 11/20, 2020. And so I didn't know if you had or needed to explain or wanted to explain that result to the panel.
No, I don't know that I ever knew about that one. No, that's not, what was the date of that one again?
Yeah, 11/20.
Okay. I was not aware of that dilute.
Okay.
Only the September 9th and then the one that we just had and I requested retesting.
Okay. And then the second page of that exhibit, just for the record to show you checked in 480 times, missed check-in 72, no showed 2, but resulted 18.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and for the board panel sake, you drug tested to supply them information as part of your application. You were not board ordered to do this, right?
Correct.
But you do understand the board's need to have evidence that certainly you are fit, competent, and safe to practice should they entertain the prospect of restoring your license, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. At this time, the state has no further questions.
Thank you, Counselor. Any questions from the board panel?
I'm Laura Moore. I'm just wanting to your missed check-ins. Explain the missed check-ins that you had with the Spectrum.
Yes, I went to, I'm sorry, I need to plug in my computer. I went to Medical Sales College in Charlotte, North Carolina. I had gotten so depressed in a way that I would just never get my license back. I just thought that this would never really happen for me. I got really discouraged and I found this program and I kind of just quit checking in. I went to college, I completed the 8-week course, made all A's, and found a little confidence in myself again. I landed a job in sales and it was quickly vanished due to COVID, as so many in medical sales are having trouble with now, finding jobs that are secure, and knew that I had made a terribly wrong decision. I never would have gone to that school or stopped checking in had I known that COVID was coming. Obviously, I think that that was a poor decision. And to not check in would never be a problem for me, as I want to continue in this career if you would so give me the mercy and the chance.
Ms. Smith, this is Stephen Culpepper, and I have about 3 questions.
Certainly.
I know that the climate that we're currently working in right now as nurses is it's more than stressful.
Mm-hmm.
I guess for me and my concerns,
Mm-hmm.
if you've got the coping mechanisms currently, perhaps what is your go-to to relieve the stress? Because this is a very difficult working environment right now in nursing and healthcare. But also, are you able to recognize, related to that evaluation that you had done, are you able to easily recognize when you're perhaps declining with your mental health? Because these are going to be important things.
I definitely do. And I thank you for asking that and broaching the subject. I have put in place so much. I have learned so much about myself. I have these safeguards, and it's a routine. I have to make my meetings. I have to talk to my therapist and sponsor, and I have to exercise. And my diet, honestly, is paramount. I know when I start craving a lot of sweets that I'm really stressed out. That's like my like I'm showing myself how stressed I am by just what I'm craving to eat. It's really that simple. Getting enough sleep, having my mom right here with me. She's basically moved in more than part-time. It's taken a village. It's something that I'm not ashamed of anymore. I only just want my story to count because so many people need to hear that the stigma hurts, but that we're not to be thrown aside. We can recover and be stronger, but help others in the process. And it is a very stressful working environment right now. So I've had to actually cut out some of the fun stuff that I know that's not necessary for me to be at and take more time to rest.
Just to clarify on your records, as far as your meetings were concerned, you did have contact with someone, because I noticed from December 2019 through May of 20.
Mhm.
Didn't see anything in the logs here. Were you still in contact with your sponsor?
Oh,
group
yes.
members?
That's when I was in Charlotte. Yes, I still made meetings and I talked to my sponsor and my best friend in AA during those 8 weeks. And I made meetings when I was home at Christmas. I was home for 2 weeks, between the December and January session. So I absolutely kept up with that.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the panel? Based on that testimony, council, any further questions?
No further questions.
Right at this time, we will begin with closing statements. Ms. Stevens, you may proceed.
Thank you. I just want to say that I know this has been the rockiest. You've probably seen people that are much more deserving and on paper of getting their license back than I am. But I want to assure you that my heart for patient care is in the right place. I have a passion for psychology because I've lived the hell of a mental illness, and it doesn't disqualify me from working. In fact,
Did we lose her?
Ms. Smith, can you hear us?
I do.
I think we lost you for a moment, so you may want to restate what you said earlier.
The last part I heard was it does not disqualify me from working.
Then it froze.
Can you hear me, Ms. Stevens?
Maybe trying to come back.
Of our existence now. Of the computer.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
I apologize.
Okay, since we did lose you, court reporter, could you, I guess, prompt her to where we left off?
Yes, ma'am. The last thing I heard you testify to was that your mental illness would not disqualify you from working.
Correct. Yes, I just wanted to say that, that is often something that people say is that we should just get on disability, but I know that I'm capable of more, was my last sentence. I know that I'm capable of working. And working as a nurse and being completely stable in it, and especially in the environment where I am. These children often, they're not even on medication. It's I have a passion for psych and these children, and it's exactly where I want to stay.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Counsel.
Yes, just briefly, before the panel today is the restoration application of Shanda Stevens. And just to remind the board that the board cannot consider incomplete application. So first, the board must determine whether or not Ms. Stevens has submitted a complete application pursuant to Rule 1.12 of our administrative code. And then finally, that in light of testimony and evidence provided by Ms. Stevens, that the board evaluate that based on the burden that Ms. Stevens carries, evidencing and indicating why she should have the opportunity to have her license restored. And in that deliberation, the board should consider conduct since loss of her license, compliance with restoration requirements, and then evidence that she is rehabilitated to a point where this board has comfort in restoring license so that she can practice safely with our public.
Thank you, counsel. We will. What we're going to do is to deliberate over this matter. The panel will deliberate over this matter, but we'll also break for lunch. So we'll plan to be back at 12:30.
Okay, so we need to let Miss Alyssa Gilson know because she was scheduled for 11:30, so we can proceed if that's okay with you guys for 12:30. Miss Gilson, did you hear? Attorney General Edward Wiggins? You're on mute. Can you unmute you? Try again.
Okay, how about now?
Yes.
Okay,
So we will proceed with your matter at 12:30, okay?
okay.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion for closed determination. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. We'll entertain a motion to executive session for deliberation on this matter. It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The
Aye.
board. Oh, thank you. The motion carries. The board will now exit to executive session. As I mentioned previously, we will be back at 12:30 to render our decision and to pick up with the next matter on the docket. Thank you all.
Thanks so much.
Vanessa,